Also,
Right. Okay, welcome to our New York Giant Preservation Society meeting for today, Wednesday, 6/19. Very somber day. I think we should each take a moment of silence to recognize the greatest player that ever lived. So why don't we each just take a couple of seconds? Okay. Welcome to tonight. I think I said the date already. Tonight we have Art Black. Art is aficionado of Rickwood Field, and he's going to be ably assisted by his friend Ken Kelly. Before we do that, just want to say a few things. I was inundated today with emails from a lot of the members. I posted a lot of stuff on Facebook. And one of our members, Jerry Austin, a lot of guys wrote a lot of things. Jerry Austin said one thing. I think he summarized it really well. He said, with Willie's passing, my childhood has come to an end. And I think a lot of us feel that way. Nobody tells anybody how to mourn. It is very sad. He had a great life. He lived to be 93. And when you think of him, you should do nothing but smile and think about all the pleasure you derive from him playing baseball and for just being Willie Mays. I mean, everybody has this signature moment of how they remember him. The great catches, the running, the hitting. You know, my signature moment is my father talking about. You know, it's a thing that's passed on from generation to generation. This group, the New York Giants Preservation Society, any group before this group that started, one of the major reasons everybody is part of this is because of Willie Mays. You're all Giant fans. Why are you still Giant fans and you live in New York and they travel 3,000 miles away? The main answer is Willie Mays. So
I go get my water.
Let me just shut that. Okay, we're good. So again, he lived to be 93, and may he rest in peace. Next Thursday, we'll have Anthony McCarron. A lot of you guys are always talking about the famed doubleheader where the Giants played the Mets in the games that went on forever. Anthony is an SNY contributor and a Major League Baseball freelance writer, and he will be discussing that game. I am privileged today to introduce Art Black and Ken Kelly. They both Art lives in Birmingham. Has written 3 books about Rickwood Field, and we were going to have this great thing about Rickwood Field, and he's going to do that tonight. But he's also going to talk a lot more than he might have about Willie Mays and Rickwood Field. So I am going to turn over. I'm going to share the screen with Ken and Art. Gentlemen, welcome to the New York Giants Preservation Site. Let's give it up for Art Black and Ken Kelly.
Thank you, Gary. Okay, I'm going to share screen. Y'all make sure that y'all can see the PowerPoint when we put it up, and y'all can see Art talking. Okay, so I'm clicking now. Is everybody good?
That made it.
There you go.
There we go.
Okay. All right. So I'm fixing to click from the beginning. Okay.
One thing, Ken.
All right, here we go.
No, you got it, Ken. Because you have both of you who are on a different screen, we're getting feedback.
I'm gonna mute myself.
That's perfect. By the way, can Ken and Art see yourselves? Because we see you.
I can't see.
Art can't see him on my big laptop, but I can see him on my iPad, so we're
perfect.
Good.
We see both of you, okay?
Okay, thank you.
The
Thanks.
floor is yours.
And I see Alana Schreiber out there. Alana is with National Public Radio out of New Orleans.
Hello.
She grew up in New York, and her parents still live there. They are down here for the game tonight or tomorrow night, and they were here last night, and we'll bring them on the screen later on for some memories. Her father, Jay, wrote for the New York Times, and they're Mets fans now, but they have some memories and some impressions from last night's game. I hope many of you saw the game last night, the minor league game between the Birmingham Barons and the Montgomery team. It was a perfect night for baseball. And this is Major League Baseball's event last night and tomorrow night. The people at Rickwood are just along for the ride. We have nothing, the Rickwood people have nothing to do with the operation of the game. Major League Baseball did a great job with organizing last night the events surrounding the game, the pregame. Let me just start out by telling you sort of how we got to the stadium and so forth. Major League Baseball set up a sort of a fan fest outside the ballpark. So they took all of the parking that was at Rickwood Field away for souvenir shops, a band, what else? Eating establishments and so forth. That covered the entire parking area. So all of the spectators had to park in a remote lot and ride big, nice air-conditioned buses to the stadium. Probably no more than a 10-minute ride. And then we walked a block or two after getting out of the bus to get to the stadium. And, Major League Baseball had all of the logistics covered. And no one can complain about how things went last night. I guess you could almost call that a dry run for tomorrow night's big game between the Giants and Cardinals.
Definitely a dress rehearsal. Yeah.
Do what?
It was a dress rehearsal. I ran into Art at Rickwood, and he's helped me a lot. I made a podcast called Road to Rickwood with NPR and Major League Baseball. And Art was a huge help in that, and as well as and I used his books as a lot of reference. So Art, you should tell the folks about your books.
Well, we will, but let me finish. Michael Mays, of course, Willie's son, was here last night. I assume he must be on the way back to San Francisco now. I don't know, but he has developed a relationship with Rickwood Field in Birmingham. He was here for Alana was here the first week in March for about 2 weeks, and conducting interviews for podcasts that NPR did. There were 4 podcasts. Michael was here for that. He was back here for the last few days until, I guess, again, he's probably left by now, but and he's become a real friend. I think it's appropriate with that game tomorrow night that we expand the scope of what you normally talk about. And well, first of all, I want to show you some photos from Major League Baseball. Not only had the shops and the memorabilia and the food booths and the souvenir shops, they had decorated the outside of the stadium with images of some of the past ball players. This would be one of them. This is right outside the ballpark. And you see, of course, there, and then behind Willie, we've got Josh Gibson. There's a booth there about Josh. And here's another one. And you can see the stadium there. See the green on the right-hand side? That's part of the stadium there. The green and the beige, that is part of Rickwood, the outside of Rickwood Field. So you see how these booths here were situated. And this was a grass field. And you see Major League Baseball brought in some sort of gravel, which really made for a nice effect. And all the little things they did. Remember, this kind of thing had never been done before here. This kind of game and this kind of event. And they did they had so many things, so many small logistical things to take care of. And everything just went so smoothly last night. We hope tomorrow night will be just as well. Let's, I'm modifying my presentation tonight a little bit because of okay, bring that back up. Yeah, this is a mural that this is a mural of Willie that someone downtown painted last week on a building in downtown Birmingham. We're trying to get that mural back up.
It's not coming up for some reason.
Okay, we've lost it.
It was there.
But this is not what we want to see right now. But I've modified the presentation somewhat because of the events of the last 24 hours.
Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna end it. I'm gonna go right here.
Here's that mural that they painted downtown. Really kind of effective, isn't it? I like that. And you'll see this image of Willie later on. This is his pose in a Birmingham Black Barons uniform. We'll show that later. It's an image you've probably seen before. But I modified it because I modified the presentation a little bit because we want to devote more time than I had expected to of course, to Willie. Of course, we heard probably about the 6th or 7th inning, the PA announcer came on to notify us of the passing, and I think we're going to show that right now.
If we can get it connected, there we go.
Ken, we're not hearing anything.
Said he's not hearing it.
Ask him if that's better.
Jerry, can you hear that?
No, we don't hear it, but the field looks great and the stands certainly.
He's not hearing anything.
Why don't you just tell us what he said then? The PA announcer.
Gary, basically, he said.
Let's get that off. Let's get that off. So what? So you heard did you see video or?
We saw a video,
did you see
hearing the audio.
And no audio?
No.
I have no idea why.
Okay. What happened was the PA announcer came on to announce the death, and the of course, everyone, it was a very moving, poignant, dramatic moment, caught everyone obviously by surprise. And once the PA announcer finished his remarks, everyone stood and clapped. And Alana's mother told me that they were seated in right field, and she told me today that she looked back and she could see a woman wiping tears out of her eyes. But the crowd rose and gave him a tribute. It was just, it was a shocking moment, but it was a poignant moment as well.
And my mother was also a woman wiping tears out of her eyes, as was
Yes.
my father.
Okay. Let's talk. What's our next? We got. Yeah. Okay. Um, as far back as 1900, and really even before that, major league teams going north from spring training played exhibition games in minor league towns. Rickwood Field hosted 3 or 4 or 5 of these games every year through the 1970s. Babe Ruth, this is an actual shot at Rickwood Field. I think the year was 1933. Played at Rickwood 9 times. Ty Cobb 6 times. This shot is of Cobb and Rogers Hornsby. All the Negro League greats played there. Nearly 200 Hall of Famers have walked the grounds of Rickwood Field, but tomorrow night will be the first regular season game at Rickwood ever. Since last October, Rickwood has undergone extensive renovations to bring the park up to Major League standards. They dug down 1.5 to 2 feet to install a modern drainage and sprinkler system. Beautiful new turf was installed. And this is not a current photo. This was an old photo before the renovations. But the field looked even better than what you see here. But the beautiful new turf, uh, the, the, the dugouts were expanded, enlarged. Padding was placed on the outfield walls, netting down the baselines, and they even erected a video scoreboard in right field, which I am sure will come down after the game. But that video board was useful, especially last night when the PA announcer announced Willie's death, because they showed um, they showed some of the highlights, and the song say, "Hey Willie," whatever. They showed some of his highlights on that board and so forth, so it was really neat. But Major League Baseball directed all of the improvements. This was last night and tomorrow night their game. Rickwood Field people are just along for the ride. They have no say-so in what's being done. But Major League Baseball directed all improvements. They were a constant presence. The improvements began last October, and Major League Baseball has been a constant presence throughout. They were very demanding. Their players were not going to play under substandard conditions, and they just monitored everything. And it's amazing what has been done since October. The big things, but not just the big things, but all the little things that I spoke about earlier, when with the even the little gravel that you saw, the beige gravel that they put over the grass, and just little things, the logistical things, and everything worked like a charm last night. But also credit goes to the city of Birmingham for funding the improvements. They have paid thus far $5.5 million toward that end. But they've gotten a lot of exposure across the country. There's no doubt about that. But okay, before we go any further, I want to salute you for helping preserve history. That's the reason I wrote my books, to save the stories before they were lost to the dustbin of history, and to leave something behind when I'm gone.
Could I,
In the
Art, I want to
yeah,
interrupt for 1 second.
yeah,
So, Art is very newbie with this Zooming stuff. He's doing a terrific job, but make sure you call him Art later, because his name is showing up as Ken Kelly, because Ken is his assistant. So later on, when we do the Q&A, you could ask Ken also questions, but Art Black is the author of this Rickwood trilogy. He'll give you a brief synopsis of each of the 3 books, but just remember that. I'm sorry to interrupt, Art. Go ahead.
that's all right. Ken is my technical advisor, by the way. But in the beginning, I planned to write a single book about Rickwood. But one book becomes 2, and then you realize if you write a 3rd book, you can chronicle the entire history of the ballpark. And the books are not game by game, year by year histories. Uh, they're more about the they're more a celebration of baseball history. And I factored in world events. Most of our Ken keeps bringing up this photo, but most of what we talk about tonight is from this particular book here. But I factored in world events to put the story of Rickwood Field and its people in context with the world at large. For instance, we bring up the sinking of the Titanic, World War I, Spanish flu, the Roaring Twenties, the Flappers, the Lindbergh's flight across the Atlantic, the stock market crash, the Great Depression, World War II, Vietnam, the moon landing, and the deaths of public figures. All of these help to tell the story. And I felt like talking about what else was going on besides baseball helped to tell the story. So how did Rickwood Field get its name? Baseball in Birmingham dates back to the 1880s. In 1909, the Birmingham Barons came under new ownership. A 33-year-old mining engineer by the name of Rick Woodward, and this is Rick Woodward in his later years. In 1909, he bought the ball club. The team played in a wooden structure called West End Park. Ballparks made of wood were a fire hazard and sometimes caught fire and burned to the ground. Can I mention the Polo Grounds in that? I mean, didn't they have a fire and lost part of the Polo Grounds at one time? So a year after taking control of the team in 1910, Rick Woodward, pictured here, decided to build a new ballpark. It would be one of the first in the country, consisting of concrete and steel. He received advice from legend. Okay, this is an early shot, probably around 1911 or 1912. It doesn't look this way anymore, and we'll go into that a little bit later. But Woodward received advice from the manager Connie Mack on how to arrange seating for the best view of the field and how to configure the diamond to minimize sun in players' faces. The ballpark was supposedly modeled somewhat after Forbes Field. The ball club decided to name the park Rickwood Field, uniting Rick Woodward's first and last names, Rick Woodward, Rickwood Field. This is, we're going to talk in just a second here about, in fact, I'm going to do it right now. The ballpark was remodeled in 1928, which was 18 years after it was built. And plaster art was applied to the front of the stadium, giving it the Spanish style gateway that it retains to this day. A concrete wall, see, we're marking that, see that concrete wall right there, that was erected in 1928, 18 years after the establishment of the ballpark, to replace a tall wooden fence. The dimensions were vast, as they were in most ballparks of the day. Center field was 470 feet from home plate. Left field was 405. Right field was pretty much close to what ballparks of today are. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Here's another shot. We're pointing out the concrete wall. Yeah, there's that concrete wall we talked about, and you can see this photo was taken, I believe, when they had the Major League Baseball beginning in October had to dig up the entire field to install the new turf and so forth. I understand the dirt portion came from Pennsylvania, all the new dirt, and the turf from Georgia. But that photo can you go back to that photo? That shows the concrete wall and the current sort of dimensions. There's the dimensions currently right up in there, and then the concrete wall behind it. So you can see how much further back it used to be. That's, as you know, you guys are more expert than I am, especially on Willie Mays, but you know how vast those old ballparks were. So this was fairly typical. Oh, okay. There was also in 1928 with those improvements, they erected a handsome new scoreboard right there. You see that scoreboard? And that was 411 feet from home plate. It was said that the cost of the scoreboard was more than the original investment in Rickwood Field. Okay. In the first half of the century, 1900s, let me get my amateur and semi-professional, the youth of America played on amateur and semi-professional teams. Mills, well, every town, every hamlet, every village had its own team. This was an industrial They called it industrial ball. Well, let me go back. Amateur ball was, of course, they're not paid. That was what we just saw was an industrial league team. In addition to amateur teams, there were um, uh, just a second here. Okay, companies of all, I don't know how much you know about this, but companies of all types hired men ages 15 to 50 um, with ball playing skills, and men played on teams representing their employers. This was a black industrial team, a SIPCO. It stood for American Cast Iron Pipe Company. That was a company in Birmingham. But employers believed that a winning ball team fostered company pride and goodwill and promoted a bond between labor and management. Um, they mills, mines, factories, banks, the post office, the police, the fire department, the newspapers, they all had teams. And industrial ball was just a big, huge part of the social fabric in the first half of the century. Uh, game results, game results were printed in the paper along with line scores of these industrial games.
No, this
Um,
election that's going on now, you know, pre-planned election about a,
Never talking, please mute yourself.
oh, I gotta mute my, they're hearing me, I gotta mute.
Yes, please.
okay, let's, the Negro Leagues were formed.
Hi.
The Negro League, the
Can I-
Negro Leagues, the Negro Leagues were formed in 1920. The Birmingham joined the Southern League, which was a minor league. Soon after, they joined the Negro National League, and after that, the American League. The American and National Leagues were the major leagues, of course, of the Negro Leagues. The Black Barons played at Rickwood Field on Saturdays and Sundays when the White Barons were not in town. Negro League teams such as the Black Barons toured the South, the Midwest, and North. Official league games comprise perhaps a third of a team's games. And to boost earnings, these teams barnstormed from town to town, playing freelance games against amateur and semi-professional teams, playing nearly every day, sometimes 2 or 3 games a day. This is a photo of Piper Davis, who was Willie Mays' first manager with the Birmingham Black Barons. I originally had planned to talk a little bit more about Piper, but I think we're going to move on and just say that the name Mays was a name. Okay, there's Piper Davis in the right there, pointing him out. That's Piper Davis playing for the semi-professional powerhouse, a SIPCO. A SIPCO and another company called Stockham Valve and other large companies like that. Well, they had teams for blacks and whites, but those industrial teams served as farm teams for black professional clubs, such as the Black Barons, because they had no farm system of their own. The name Willie, the name Mace is a known brand around Birmingham, or was a known brand around Birmingham. Willie's grandfather and father both played semi-professional ball for these industrial teams that we just talked about. In 1945, Willie played on a steel mill team with his when he was in the 7th grade in 1945 with his father, Cat. Cat and Piper Davis, saw Piper's picture a minute ago, but Piper and Cat Mays, Willie's father, played together at Fairfield Industrial High School. And their paths would cross again down the road. But Willie, ever since he saw his first Black Barons game when he was 6, and he had 6 years old, and he'd always wanted to play for the Black Barons. Piper Davis, who became the Black Barons manager in 1948, ran into Willie by accident in Chattanooga. Willie was playing for the Chattanooga Choo-Choos. Here's Willie, of course, and you recognize where he is, right in the center, but that's with the Choo-Choos. This was an illustration that I had done from a photo. But Willie played for the Choo-Choos in the spring of 1948, which was toward the end of his 10th grade year of high school. He played for cash under the table, because if he had played openly for money, he would not have been able to continue playing high school sports, although Willie didn't care anything about that. But he was a great high school basketball, baseball, and football player. Piper Davis ran into Willie, as I mentioned, by accident in Chattanooga when both teams were in that town. And Willie told Piper that he wanted to play for the Black Barons. Piper was reluctant because he didn't want to jeopardize Willie's high school career. A week or two later, Piper ran into Willie again in Atlanta, and Willie once more told Piper he wanted to play for the Black Barons. Finally, Piper said, "Well, if you want to play for us and your daddy says it's okay, have him call me." So shortly after that, on a Sunday morning, Piper received a call from Cat Mays. "If the boy wants to play, let him." Okay, at first, Piper played Willie only in small towns in games on the road, so hoping that no one would notice. But soon he could not hide the boy forever. So Willie's still in his 10th grade year. Would be the summer of his 10th grade year, after the 10th grade. On July 4th, 1948, Piper Davis removed a veteran player from the lineup and inserted Willie into left field. The veteran players, all grown men, were not happy about it at first. They didn't think Willie had proven himself, but soon they realized that Willie could lead them to the World Series. Okay, we're in 1948. The Black Barons won. Here's Willie. Not sure the year of this. I may have documented that in the book. I don't remember, but this is probably, I would say this is probably 1950, I imagine. He looks a little older than that. 1950 would be his senior year. So the Black Barons won the first half title of the American League in 1948. The Kansas City Monarchs won the second half title. The Monarchs were the name brand. They had won 11 league championships between 1923 and 1946. So for the American League Championship in game number 1, Willie singled in the 11th inning with the bases loaded to drive in the winning run. In game 2, he doubled in the 9th inning to drive in the tying run. Black Barons won the first 3 games. The Monarchs, okay, there's Willie. Okay, we're a little early on that shot. The Black Barons, I'm trying to think now, I've lost my train of thought. But anyway, the Monarchs stormed back to win the next 3. So the Black Barons won the first 3 games. The Monarchs came back to win the next 3. The decisive 7th game was played in Kansas City. Bill Greason was the winning pitcher for the Black Barons in Game 7. Bill Greason, as you probably have heard, is still alive and will celebrate his 100th birthday in September. So this is a celebration after they won the 7th game. This is in Kansas City, and there's Willie in the circle. The Black Barons lost the World Series, the 1948 World Series, the last Negro League World Series, by the way, to the legendary Homestead Grays, the team of Josh Gibson, although he had retired by this time. The word about the boy wonder Willie Mays began to spread in 1949 and 1950. A scout from the Boston Braves, Bill Maughan, Maughn, claims to be the first white scout to see Willie play at Rickwood Field in 1949. Willie begged Maughan to sign him, but Cat, Willie's father, insisted on Willie finishing high school first. Now, 1949, Willie would be in the 11th grade. Maughan was sure that he had Willie locked up, but the Boston Braves were unsure on Willie, and they passed, and Maughan could never understand why. Later that year, that summer of 1949, the Black Barons traveled to the Polo Grounds to play the New York Cubans, and Giants executives witnessed the game. In May of 1950, Willie graduated from Fairfield Industrial High. A deal had been brewing for a year, and the Black Barons traveled again that summer of 1950 to the Polo Grounds to again play the Cubans. After the game, the two teams headed for Birmingham, playing small towns along the way. On July 4th, 1950, Willie played his last game for the Black Barons. Black Barons owner Tom Hayes sold him to the New York Giants for $15,000. Did we show them all the photos? What's
We're
that?
here now. This will be the next one.
We're not going to go into that just yet.
Okay.
Okay, I want to digress just a moment and tell you about Reggie Jackson, who, as you know, of course, was the outfielder for the Oakland A's, the New York Yankees. He was a Birmingham Bear, and this is from 1967. Playing at this point, they were no longer the Barons; they were the Birmingham A's for a few years. They were Charlie Finley's Double-A farm team, Oakland, for the Oakland Athletics. Reggie was about to begin his career or his season with the Birmingham A's in 1967 when he learned that Willie. First of all, let me just say this: that Reggie grew up in Philadelphia, and he idolized Willie Mays. And when he found out that Willie had played on the same field that he was about to embark on, Rickwood Field, Reggie said, Mays played in the park I'll be playing in, you say? Well, what do you know? That's nice, real nice. He also said, ever since I've been big enough to read, Willie Mays has been my hero, my ideal, not only as a ball player, but as a man, the way he conducts himself. Reggie said he hoped to be half the ball player Willie Mays is. He had never met Mays, but I sure hope to someday. He's the greatest. When Willie Mays entered white baseball, the Negro Leagues were dying. The major leagues had begun luring away the best black ball players. The young black players no longer dreamed of playing in the Negro Leagues. They dreamed of playing in the majors. And, I'm not going. You guys know more about Willie's early years with uh, Trenton. Let me see. With am I saying that right? Is it with yeah, Trenton, with the Trenton farm team? He as soon as the Giants hired him, as soon as they signed Willie, they sent him to the Trenton farm team, and he hit 353 the rest of that season. And of course was advanced to Minneapolis the next year, and was hitting 477 at that point when the Giants called him up. You guys all know that story. But Willie didn't want to go. He was happy in Minneapolis. He thought they could win the pennant, and he just didn't think he was ready for the major leagues. But Leo DeRocher called and said, we're in Philadelphia, and I expect you to be there. So, of course, Willie did go. He went 0 for his first 12 with the Giants. Then he hit a home run, and then went 0 for 13. So he was 1 for 26 in his debut with the Giants. He at that point, the story. He sat in front of his locker with tears in his eyes, may have been crying. Manager Lito DeRocher went up to him, put his arm around him, and said, "What's wrong? What's the matter, son?" "Mr. Leo, I can't help you. I can't even get a hit. I know you're going to send me back to Minneapolis. The Brooklyn's too fast for me." DeRocher patted him on the back and said, "Son, you're the best center fielder I've ever seen. You're going to be my center fielder as long as I'm here. Today, tomorrow, next week." And Willie rewarded his trust by going on a 10-game hitting streak. Now, Willie told, after his debut game with the Giants, he told reporters that his idol was Joe DiMaggio. In fact, he said when he was 10 years old in Fairfield, Alabama, he told his best friend to call him DiMag. But he studied in the newsreels, he studied how DiMaggio ran, how he threw, and how he hit. And he said that he modeled his open batting stance after Joe DiMaggio. And he said DiMaggio was the greatest. Willie's first year in 1951 with the Giants, of course, they were 13 and a half games behind the Dodgers in August. They went on a run, and by the last regular season game, of course, was the tie with the Dodgers, and forced the 3-game series and the Bobby Thompson home run in Game 3. Let's bring up. This was an actual a replica of an actual newspaper photo in Birmingham that I used in the book, because I had an artist illustrate the photo, because I didn't want to use a newspaper photo in the book, and it didn't have the original photo. But Willie had 10 half brothers and sisters, and this was a photo of the family watching, or not watching, but listening to the radio during the series with the Dodgers. In fact, I think it might have been a photo from Game 3. But there's his mother. This is his mother right here, and then his stepfather, and then half brothers and sisters. But I thought that was such a great photo. And you see the little pennants on the window, and the little flags or whatever they are. Well, yeah, let's talk. They've seen that, but we can bring that up. This was one of the stickball pictures that he was famous for. When he was called into the service during the Korean conflict in 1952, he surprised reporters by telling them that after his Giants teammates, the people he would miss most were his Harlem friends. "Say what?" the reporters asked. "Oh, yes, I play ball in the street with them. I play in the morning of day games, or after a night game, or after a night game we play." They were completely shocked. They had no idea that had been going on. How are we on time?
Art, you know what I think you should do?
Yeah.
I think Ken should bring up your 3 books on the screen. Give us a little synopsis on each book about Rickwood. Tell us about
Okay.
your artblackbaseball.com, and then we should open it up to questions.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, this was a nearly 12-year effort, and as I mentioned before, it was only going to be a single book. This first book was going to be the only one, but I had enough material that I wanted to do a second book. That first book is the centerpiece of that book was a pitching duel between Ray Caldwell, who at one time was a New York Yankee, uh, uh, against Dizzy Dean. Caldwell was 42 years old. Dean was 21. And this was, they pitched against each other in game one of what was called the Dixie Series. This was in 1931. And it's really the most famous game in Birmingham's history. Caldwell was coming off a long career in the majors. And you know how ball players hung around forever because they were not ready for anything else. They were not prepared for a life after baseball. So Caldwell for years, probably close to 10 years or so, 9 years, played minor league baseball after he'd been in the majors. He ended up with Birmingham. That was really his last team, his last hurrah, and did well. And that 1931 Dixie Series, which was, by the way, was like a double-A World Series between the Texas League and the Southern Association, they called it. Not the Southern League, but the Southern Association. So that was game one of the Dixie Series. They played each other, and Caldwell won the game 1-0. There were 20,000 people at Rickwood Field that day. Again, that was the most famous game.
So the first book is the oldest. The middle book is more about
The middle book,
Rickwood
the middle
becoming
book,
famous, correct?
the middle book has a couple of chapters on Willie. It covers the first book covers 1910 through about 1931 or 32. The second book covers the early 30s until the early 60s. So Willie is represented in this book very well. And then the third book, as you see, there's Reggie Jackson in the center. That's Gene Tennis on the left. That's owner Charlie Finley and Raleigh Fingers. All of those players and more came through Rickwood Field and played for those 3 straight world championships that Finley had.
Now,
So
Art, what
yeah.
is the best way to get the books through your web page or through Amazon?
Yeah. If they go to the website, which you see here at the bottom, artblackbaseball.com, you can order through Amazon. You don't actually have to go to the website to get to Amazon, but that's the simple way to do it. And the books are $25. Of course, Amazon's going to charge you shipping and tax and all that. That comes out to, I think, something like $31 with all that said. Do we have time to bring in Jay Schreiber, Gary?
If they speak quickly, because I know we have a lot of people want to talk to you.
Okay, Jay, can you tell them about the final hit of Willie's career and the final hit of Jackie Robinson's career?
Am I on?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I'm going to try and do this while I'm driving. Let's see if I can do this. Anyway, I thought it would be of interest to this group. The last base hit of Willie Mays' career, last base hit, was in 1973 in the World Series, Mets and Oakland A's. As you all know, Mays had come back to New York at the end of his career to play for the Mets. Game 2 of the World Series. It's known because Mays lost his balance and fell down in that game in the outfield. And everybody took that as a symbol of he wasn't what he was, and that, of course, was true. But in the, I believe it was the 12th inning of that game, off Raleigh Fingers, the great Raleigh Fingers.
Played in Birmingham, played at Rickwood.
That's my daughter Alana, helped me out. Mays got a single up the middle to break the tie game, put the Mets ahead for good. It was the go-ahead run. And it was the absolute last base hit of his career. He only batted one more time in that World Series as a pinch hitter. He didn't get a hit. And then, of course, he retired. What's remarkable about all this is that the last base hit of Jackie Robinson's career was a walk-off single in Game 6 of the 1956 World Series, Dodgers-Yankees. I think a lot of people remember Game 5 of that World Series was Don Larson's perfect game. Game 6 was a 0-0 game back at Ebbets Field in extra innings. Robinson came up and lined the ball over Eno Slaughter's head in left field to win the game. Game 7 of the World Series took place the next day. Robinson played, didn't get a hit, and then he retired. So to me, it's astounding that Mays and Robinson, who are also linked by the fact that Leo DeRocha was their initial manager in the major leagues, they both ended their career with a game-winning hit in the World Series. And then very shortly after that, they both retired. And it's kind of, it's astounding. It's the kind of thing that you say about baseball, you can't make it up, but there it is. And you can draw whatever meaning you want from it, but it's what happened.
Yep.
So Jay,
And that's my
Jay,
contribution.
yeah, Jay is your
So
neighbor in
take
New
it
York.
away.
Jay is your neighbor in New York, and he's down in Birmingham right now. Was at the game last night. Will be at the game tomorrow night. He and his wife and came down, and Alana, who's with NPR, came up from New Orleans for the game, and they're having a big time.
We are.
Oh,
So
let me add one more thing, because I know you said you're going to have Anthony McCarron next week, and I know Anthony is a good, solid journalist. He's going to talk about the famous 23-inning game. I was there as a 13-year-old kid with all my 13-year-old friends. We were there for about 9 hours because it was a doubleheader. In that famous 23-inning game, in the 10th, 11th, and 12th innings, and we were sitting there watching it, Mays moved from center field to shortstop. You know, in extra inning games, you're moving guys around, and that's what they did. And then he went back to play center field for the rest of the game. So I can say, and I saw Mays play a ton of times, but I can say that I saw Willie Mays play shortstop in the major leagues. And so I would, when Anthony's on next week, be sure to ask him about that.
Better than yet, why don't you hop aboard next week with us, okay?
Next week?
Yes.
I'll fine. I won't be driving Alana anywhere, so I'll be free to.
Sounds good.
I'll be free to do it.
I appreciate your talking. Art, we want to, first of all, thank you for such a thorough.
well, I'm sorry I talked. I didn't realize I had talked so long. I see now it was almost an hour. I'm
and
sorry.
Ken, thank you for setting that up. We're going to take some questions now. First of all, both gentlemen, thank you for helping us heal a little bit tonight, talking about Willie. My question is this: you are very aware of what's going on there in Rickwood Field for all these years, and you wrote this trilogy. Is there a fourth book about turning this into a
No, don't even think about it. You know, one thing I didn't say, Gary, earlier was as I was doing my research. Do you know how I researched this? No, of course you don't know. Okay, what I did, the 90% of the material in the first two books are from newspapers of the day, and so I scrolled through. This was before digitalization, and I scrolled through newspaper microfilm of two local papers from 1910 through 1987, day by day, page by page, year by year. And I did that because I didn't know what I was looking for. You don't know what until you find it, you don't know what you're looking for. And I wanted to see what else was going on in the world at the time. So that was the best way to do it. And it is, it's tedious work. I'm glad I did it, but I would never do another book
All
like
right.
that.
Let's go to Mars. Mars, you're up first.
Okay. Couple of questions I had. Thanks for joining us. While the Black Barons were present, or will others that are not residents of Birmingham be able to attend tomorrow's game? That's my first question. And my second question's um, um, well, let's address that one.
The game is sold out. It's sold out in 40 minutes. So no
Well,
one else. By the way, I didn't have tickets until today. Alana sold me 2 tickets that she had. So, yeah, I was. Alabama residents were supposed to get priority in a lottery, and I was accepted. We had to register ahead of time. Let's don't go. I don't think we want to bore you with those details, but I didn't get tickets, and so no one else. I mean, unless you bought tickets on one of these StubHub kind of things, there haven't been tickets available since the first day they went on sale.
yeah,
Does
they
that answer?
provided itinerary, and there was a website, and I went on it, but it didn't go any further than that. And as it turns out, then I heard unless I was a resident, I couldn't buy tickets.
Yeah, I can't help you on that. I don't have any idea. Listen, again, has nothing to do. This game has nothing to do with people at Rickwood Field or the people in Birmingham. This is totally a Major League Baseball event, and if you have any problems with that, that's who you need to talk to.
Oh, they got enough of their own problems.
Yeah,
But thank you
yeah,
very much.
yeah.
Harvey Weinberg, you are up.
Art, thank you very much for joining us. But I actually have a question for Alana. Is she still on this? No, she's not. What I was going to ask her is if she knew a fellow named Ben Dickstein, who was the executive producer of NPR's production of the Rickwood. They got 4 podcasts.
I can answer that. They came, Alana and came representing NPR, and a number of people from Major League Baseball came down. This was the first at the very end of February. They were down here for a week and a half. And Ben was one of those. Jonah, do you know the name Jonah? I don't know his last name.
Did you say Ben was one of the people who came down?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh,
He came down.
Ben Dickstein is the son of my first cousin.
Okay. Well, he
Small world. It's a small world.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
My comment to you was, you were talking about Willie being scouted by the Boston Red Sox.
No, Boston Braves.
I think he was also scouted by the Red Sox, but in any event, okay, if it's the Braves,
I think you're right, but I'm just telling you that from my research, reading the newspapers, that the Boston Braves scout claimed to be, and I can't verify this, but he claimed to be the first white scout to see Willie play.
Well, what I was going to comment I was going to comment was the common knowledge that the Red Sox didn't sign an African-American baseball player till 1959, 12 years after Jackie broke the color barrier. But that was my only comment. Thank you very much for joining us.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Art and Ken, I noticed one thing before I go to the judge here. Yesterday's game, I saw on one of the pillars or an area, a wall, it said Willie Mays Pavilion. Has that been there a while? That sign?
They collected some bricks from a building that was torn down in Birmingham. This was a number of years ago, and they brought those bricks over there, and they built that little. They really sort of used that more as a batting cage. But I noticed that last night it looked like there were people, probably high rollers in there. So they can use it for any kind of event, really. Set it up as a batting cage or have an event in there. So yeah, there were people. There were people.
So
I don't know if they were impressed.
that's a new thing at the stadium, is what you're saying,
No,
relatively.
it's not new. It's been there for, well, I mean, relatively speaking, it's new. I mean, when the park is 114 years old, yeah, that's relatively new. But it's been there for, oh, probably 10 years.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Jim, you're up, Jim.
Thanks, Gary.
online.
Art, just two quick questions. What did they do with the capacity of the stadium before and after the renovations? Did they increase it?
When you say, you talk about the current renovations, this,
Yeah, for this game.
okay.
Did they
Not
change
not
the
way back in
capacity?
1928 or okay, yeah. They had to the seating capacity before the improvements was probably 85. I don't know if it was that much. Well, they had to eliminate some seats because of handicap seating, but I don't. It wouldn't. That was more like 500 seats. So the official capacity right now, I was told, is more like 8,100.
Oh, that's it. Is there a thought that there are going to be the future major league games at Rickwood? Because I know they played more than 1 year over at the
We
field.
hope so, and we hope so. And Major League Baseball has made the statement to the director of Friends of Rickwood. Are y'all going to keep up this field now? Yeah, yeah. They want. Uh, I don't know if I told you that field was just beautiful last night because it's a major league field. But they want. There are about 200 events a year. Most of them are like youth travel ball teams, that kind of thing, and people really from all over, not just around this area, but from all over come to play youth ball. The Cincinnati Reds, by the way, for the last 2 years have done their camp. What do you call those camps? Uh,
Fantasy camps.
when the adults you play,
Yeah, the fantasy camps.
fantasy camps. Yeah, they have come the last 2 years and enjoyed the heck out of it. But anyway, um, Major League Baseball is going to try to get the folks at Rickwood to limit the number of events so that they don't wear down the field. But that's to be that's kind of a work in progress. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but there's talk. I mean, we'd like to think there's going to be another event, but see, they used to have what was called the Rickwood Classic, which was a minor league game um, uh, once a year between the Birmingham Barons and another minor league team. They stopped doing that about 3 or 4 years ago when Major League Baseball pretty much took over the minor leagues, and so the MLB would not allow Rickwood to host one of those games because the field was not up to standards and so forth. It was more of a weedy field, and but now that it's up to standards, they'll probably continue that game every year, the minor league game, and of course we hope that in the future they can do other major league games. But there's also talk. There's going to be possibly maybe Japanese might be involved, Japanese game of some type. So that's to be determined later on. Yeah.
And if I can do one more real quick one, you spoke of the industrial leagues there in the 30s and 40s that played over at Rickwood. Did I hear you say that those industrial teams were integrated?
No, they weren't, but they were, for instance, no, they weren't integrated.
Okay.
But like, for instance, that picture you saw of a SIPCO with Piper Davis was on the back row.
Yeah.
That was SIPCO had a black team and a white team.
Okay.
And other large industries did the same thing, but SIPCO is one of the more well-known ones.
Okay.
So no, they were not integrated. No.
I didn't think they were, and I thought I heard you say that though.
Yeah.
Gary, thank you very much. Appreciate you being here, Art. Enjoyed it.
Thanks.
Mr. Paul, you're up.
Yeah, thank you, Art, very much. That was really interesting about forward at this point. Do you know what, once this game is over with, changes they'll make to the field? And then what will the availability be like if you want to come down and tour the field and kind of see it? Is there what kind of tours are there available for people, fans like us who love Willie, who want to come down and check out where he played and where he lived?
Thank you. I intended to wind up the discussion with a statement that if you're ever in the area, please drop by and we'll give you a tour. That's definitely you. The park is open most weekdays, but I wouldn't come down or make plans until I knew for sure what was going on. But normally there's someone around that can give you a tour. Yes. And what was the first part of the question?
What kind of alterations will there
Oh,
what's permanent left over from the renovation that will stay, and what will come down if you know it?
did you watch the game? They had installed a big green batting uh, backdrop in center field. I I don't know. I imagine that will come down, and of course the video scoreboard will come down, but everything else, they enlarged the dugouts. Those will stay like they were. The dugouts were not original anyway. They were like
Okay.
about the fifth generation, the ones they had.
Right.
And I don't think there's going to be many. I don't foresee any changes other than the video board coming down and maybe that batter's backdrop coming down.
Okay.
Did y'all watch the game? Did anyone watch the game last night?
Watched some of it last night. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
you.
I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be down
So,
next winter in Savannah, so I'll be over.
okay, but let me say, with the improvements, the field has not lost any of its charm. It really hasn't.
Thank you, Paul.
Gary,
Anybody
am I
else?
online?
Frank, go ahead. We don't see your face tonight. Go ahead.
Wait, it's not, well, at any rate, I have no, for the many, I've brought this out many times. I have no question, but since you've discussed relationships between two people, DiMaggio is Italian for maize.
DiMaggio was what?
Italian for maize, of May. Maize and DiMaggio. Maggio means the month of May in Italian.
Okay.
No one catches that? No one understands that? Maize and Maggio mean the same thing in English and Italian. Well, I guess that didn't go over very well.
Thanks.
How about you, Gary? I'm getting a better picture than you.
I'm not smart enough to understand all that stuff. But go ahead.
You know what? Maggio is Italian for the month of May. So maize means of May, and DiMaggio means of May.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. Yeah.
Thanks, Frank.
And I'm getting better pictures of you. You're closer up.
Maybe I should move back then.
No. I'll wait 10 seconds and move back if you want to.
Does anybody else have a question? All right. Before I say anything, I want Greg Fegley to coming on. Greg, you got to bring that dog back. He's gorgeous. Love that dog.
I have one more question that was on my list, and that was any surviving Black Baron teammates of Mays at tomorrow's game?
No, they have not any teammates, but there were some Black Barons that, like for instance, Alana with NPR interviewed 3 or 4 of those. They were at the game last night. They were really from the late 50s and early 60s. Bill Greason, who I mentioned earlier, who's won that decisive 7th game in 1948. is still alive, and I said he celebrates his 100th birthday in September. I think they're going to have an event for his birthday at Rickwood Field in September. That would be an interesting thing to come down to. But there's there are no teammates of Willie that I know. Well, other than Greason, Bill Greason would be the only one.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Listen, Art and Ken, very timely that we got you here. We got you here really to talk more about Rickwood, and unfortunately, with the news yesterday, you changed your program around a little. So I think we all owe both of them a great round of applause for coming on board tonight. Thank you guys so much. And for the last time, Art, best way to get your books?
You can go to Amazon and enter the title of one of those books, or really the best way would be go to artblack.com and go to the purchase screen, and there you'll find an Amazon link.
And there'll be complete synopsis of all three of the books. Correct?
The website, by the way, the website is pretty complete. It'll give you a lot of background on the books, comments from other people. But so before I bought any books, I think I would go there and just read up on what the books entail and so forth.
Lastly, I must say this meeting tonight, it's only been scheduled for about a month. I was looking for something with Rickwood. I was striking out. And then I was lucky enough to fall upon Art. And Art now has developed a nice relationship with our friend John Shea. So it's a beautiful thing. But again, why don't we give both gentlemen a nice round of applause. Thank you guys so much. We will reconvene next Thursday with Anthony McCarron. In the meantime, I'm going to shut the recording off. Norm, we made it. And then we will, anybody wants to reminisce more about Willie Mays or the Giants being not playing too well the last few games, we can talk about that. So,
But my Mets are doing great.
Wonderful. Happy Juneteenth. Well, so be good. Frank, learn some more jokes that we can understand, and we will see you guys next week. Good night, everybody.
Gary, how do I turn my recording off?